On today's Transport Evolved, there is a very exciting announcement involving the 2012 Tesla Model S. A not so exciting announcement from Polar Network, or rather a response to some criticisms that might not meet everyone's approval. There's news about the delayed 2012 Smart for 2 electric drive, and much more. Coming up next on Transport Evolved. Transport Evolved is sponsored by audiblepodcast.com. To claim your free audiobook from a selection of over 85,000 growing titles for your iPod or MP3 player, head to www.audiblepodcast.com/Transport Evolved. And also sponsored by owning an electric car. Everything you need to know about owning an electric car. Head to www.owningelectriccar.com. And by your kind donations. We thank you for your kind support. And also proud to support As Darkness Ends, the first book in the mini-series by Aaron Crocco. Head to www.aaroncrocco.com for more information. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 81 of Transport Evolved, recorded on Thursday, December 22nd, 2011. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield.
And my name is Michael Thwaite.
Hello. How are you today?
Happy days. Nearly Christmas. A couple more days to go.
Indeed. Do you like the new room?
The new studio, the new layout. Yeah, it looks good.
It's a little bit out of place because it's not quite finished yet, but I now have an expanse of desk that is so large I can't actually show you on screen. I need to buy myself a nice widescreen angle lens. If you're watching the video and I look a little bit vampire-ish, this is how I look in natural light. We haven't put any of the studio lights up yet. They're still in their little boxes. They'll be going up sometime over the Christmas break. Anyway, enough talking about that. We are here today to cover the latest news in the world of green transport, specifically with a mind to electric vehicles. And joining us all the way from jolly old England, we've got another English presenter today, one of the top bods over at thechargingpoint.com, Mr. Will Dron, who is wearing, well, I'll let you see. He's wearing a Santa hat. Hello, Will. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you.
Are you practicing?
You like that hat?
I do. Are you practicing your belly laugh?
Well, clearly. Oh, ho, ho.
Yes, I can do a better belly laugh than you. That's slightly wrong.
Look, I feel slightly embarrassed now. I didn't put this on to feel embarrassed.
Anyway, so Will, you are the lead writer. One of the lead writers at the Charging.
Oh no, I'm the least apt writer, the least successful writer out of the whole lot of us. But I do manage it on a day-to-day basis.
You're the one that keeps the gears turning and the wheels going round.
That's exactly what I do.
There you go. We like wheel-turny round people here, don't we, Michael?
We do.
So we've got a great load of stories this week for you. If you want to take part in today's show, what you need to do is you need to point your browser at www.transportevolved.com/live, and you will see there that we have a picture of what's going on very much live at the moment. Is that the best way of putting it? transportevolved.com/live.
That's right.
Well, we're not really dead there, are we?
No. Check out the show notes at tinyurl.com/transportevolved81.
Yes, Transport Evolved 81. And those of you who are watching live will notice that I just managed to screw up with my new set of the studio, and I put pre-recorded over the top of that. If you see any strange things happening today, please forgive me, please be gentle. Everything is in a different place. I haven't quite got used to the fact that I've got this awesome program that can control multiple computers with just one mouse.
Cool. You've done this 81 times, honestly.
I know, 81 times, and I'm screwing it up.
Still.
Yeah, never mind.
Never mind.
I even had a week off. I still managed to screw it up. So, what do we start with this week, Michael?
I don't know. Let's dive straight into the big story, which I think is the Polar charging story. I like this story. So this is
where do we start?
You got to talk to the guys from Polar and ask them drill them on this.
Okay, well,
charging.
No, because we can't really start there. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's say who Polar Network are and what Polar Network does. Will,
everybody knows them.
You know a little bit about Polar. Tell us a little bit about Polar.
So Polar is a charging network scheme run by ChargeMaster, who are, I guess, one of the leading charging providers in the UK. And it's a membership scheme whereby you pay for membership and you get a card, and you then get to use the network of Polar charging points. You can also have them install one at your house, and you can you pay very little up front, but you get to pay. You have to then pay a monthly subscription scheme, and the rest is kind of. I'll leave it to you guys to explain what's been going on in the last week.
Chicken. Okay, so right, so we've got this. This is the Polar website. It's very, very nicely put together. They explain how Polar works. It's a subscription system. You go to this, go down here, and it will say you can join. Got 4 levels of service, if you like, a bit like a phone bill. Registration fee of £95, and then it's a minimum 24-month contract. You pay anything from $19.50 a month, right up to $39.50 a month. And for those who are watching or listening in the US, that's the equivalent of about $30 minimum payment, up to about 62. Michael.
Sounds about right.
You pay for access to the network. You don't. That's the first bit, and then every time you use the network, they charge you 95 pence to access the network and to use the system. So if you use one of these systems every day, you're going to be paying 95p a day plus anything from 19.50 up to £40 a month for access to the network. So, depending on how much or little you use it, your bills could be quite high. Now, they've come under quite a lot of criticism in the past, both on this show and in other arenas, for some high cost membership fees, basically. People are saying, we don't want to be part of a network that charges us £19.50 a month when we might only use that network once or twice a month. We'd much rather turn up, swipe a credit card, pay £10, £15, £5, whatever, to charge our vehicles when we need to, and have it on an ad hoc basis rather than an exclusive membership club. Unfortunately, that's not quite how it's gone. And there's been some incidents this week, have there not, Michael, where people have gone to use a charging system and found that either it's not working or it's not free or it's not quite as expected. This is with the Little Chef restaurants.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit last week. One of the Paul Churchley, I believe.
Yeah, he's actually in the chat room today.
Yeah, oh cool. He actually reported on his blog and his experiences, and he went through some agonizing experiences to get the Polar network up and running. And this is, jumping straight, really into some of the details here. If you're going to pay top dollar for a network, and I think if I get this right, you're paying 4 times to, until you actually get some electricity. You've got permission to sign up, you've got monthly sign up, you've then got usage. Oh, you've then got unplugging the connector, and then you've got electricity coming out. There's 4 ways. For that kind, even if it was a small amount for each of those 4 amounts, I'd expect absolutely stellar, top-notch service. And as Paul reported in his blog, a 90-minute wait fighting with somebody on an 0845 premium rate number on his mobile just to get them to turn the thing on is absolutely insane.
So just to reiterate, when Little Chef came on, they said that when Little Chef came on board to host these charging points, which are incidentally installed and run by ChargeMaster, which is the company that is kind of like parent company of Polar. The idea was that these charging points would be free to use until the end of 2012 to anybody turning up to a Little Chef. And the impression that everyone got was that there would be a little swipe card somewhere with the Little Chef staff. You could go in, could swipe the card, you could plug in, go and have a meal, come out, go home. But in the case of, we've had several reports now of people turning up at Little Chefs to use this free service, and either the charging station not working at all, or it taking 90 minutes plus to turn on. Or, as in the case of Paul, being told over the phone that if he wanted to use the network, he had to sign up with a limited 12 charge only card that he could use on the Polar network, and then when that 12 charges ran out, he would then have to pay a monthly subscription fee. Now, all in all, we approached I approached the CEO, David Martell of Polar this week, and I had a little chat with him. I don't want to go over it blow for blow, but let's just say the gist of the interview was, well, electric car owners can afford it. No one's asking them to be a part of the network. And if you don't like it, tough.
I thought he's...
Sorry,
yeah, I thought his best comment. This is referring to the Green Car Report's article. If anyone's listening and hasn't read this, go read this report. It really is. I mean, I was talking.
I wrote that, by the way. I think I should probably disclaim.
Oh yes. Sorry, this is Nikki's article, but you should definitely go read it because it reads like a Python sketch, with the CEO actually challenging Nikki to get her facts straight and figure out who this company called ChargePoint is in America. Who's heard of this person?
ChargePoint. Have you ever heard of ChargePoint, Will?
I'm aware of ChargePoint. Obviously, it's very much US based.
So yeah, I mean, because we were chatting. Obviously, David Martell and I was chatting, and I was saying, look, people are wanting to use a time of use system, a pay as you go, if you will. Rather than a membership. And he said, well, no one offers that. And I said, well, this ChargePoint in the States does. He said, who are they? I've never heard of them. Let's give ChargePoint its dues. It's a commercial service and no one has to be part of it, right? Well,
who's this? You mean Polar?
Sorry, Polar. Sorry.
Yes.
It's late in the week and late in the year. Polar.
Yeah. I know that this issue has really annoyed some people, so I'm not going to defend them, but I will act as devil's advocate to some extent and say that, I will echo what the CEO said, David Martell, and just say, nobody's forcing anyone. And I think that's easy to say, but then, of course, if you're driving an EV across country, you want to do a quick charge, the only option you've got is Polar. That's going to be an issue. But it's really early days.
Yep.
And they should be allowed some slack, I think. I know it's annoying for people like Paul who turn up and they have to wait an hour and a half. But I really think we ought to be fair at this stage in the game, because we need this to work. Let's be honest. We want it to work, and they want it to work. They're offering a service that's different from the other people, and I think free market economics will determine which one works best.
Okay.
I think I like that comment, and I agree with you in principle. And I think you make some great points about cutting them some slack. And I think if it weren't for the fact that every time we hear a story of Polar, it's another story of grief. And if Polar were to come out and say, do you know what? These charging stations are really expensive. They cost a lot to put in. They cost a lot to manage and maintain. And we have to have an operations center to make them work. They're going to cost you this number of dollars to use. I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely fine with somebody coming and saying it's going to be expensive and you're going to expect, you're going to have to pay for it. But to sort of say, oh, EV users are wealthy, they won't mind paying. This is just really bad PR. Couple that to Paul's incident where he couldn't get the thing turned on, to situations where people have called up the network and had some intern or whatever call. I don't know the full details. I apologize, but had some individual say, well, I'm the last person in the shop and I don't know how to turn these charging points on. This is really lousy service, and to try and go to somebody who doesn't have an EV and say, you should get one of these things, and this is how they work, and then be faced with something like this, it's just absolute disaster.
Yeah.
And I want to actually throw in that another story actually linked with this. We can come back to the Polar story, of course, but on the flip side of this charging debacle from Polar, you have Kevin Sharp and Zero Carbon World kitting out free charging points or low cost charging points into hotels and the like on the other end of the spectrum. But for the traveller, you've got companies like EV Oasis. I'm reading here from Leaf Forum, who summed it up for us. They're saying that EV Oasis is installing DC charge stations in Southern California, and they're going to have the first units up and running in January in San Juan Capistrano. I apologize for the San Juan and Del Mar, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the other place. It's a Spanish Mexican sounding name, and I apologize.
You are totally an East Coast boy.
I am, aren't I? But here's the thing: is they're gonna either give you a $89 a month plan, which gives you many kilowatt hours for each month to use, which I wouldn't go for because we don't travel that much, or they'll give you what we're asking for, which is up to 30 minutes of charge for about $6 or $7 on a pay per use way. Now, $6 or $7, that represents a similar cost, if not slightly less than gasoline. We're all happy to pay for it. These guys are showing the way, and Polar are missing it, I think.
And I think ultimately that's been my my big bugbear with the way that this has all been ran. In order to have a good business, in order to run a successful business, you need to have a product that people want at a price they are willing to pay for it. And I think that's the kind of the head hitting the wall that I experienced with Mr. Martel was, I tried to get across the concern that people are telling me as a journalist. And I've had numerous tip-offs from people going, I've spoken to Polar Network and they've said this. I've spoken to Polar Network and they've said that. To, say, people are saying that your network is overpriced and they won't pay for it. There were less than 1,000 electric cars bought in 2011 in the UK. Less than 1,000 people. You cannot run a business off 1,000 people if those 1,000 people are not going to buy your service because it's too expensive. If they lowered the cost or lowered the terms and conditions, and imagine if every single or most people in the UK that owned an electric car signed up to that service, they would make several £1,000s a month instantly. But that's not going to happen because people aren't going to pay for it, and it's only going to be corporations.
Of course, for Polar, there's a big upfront costs, so they have to recoup that.
Yeah,
somehow.
Absolutely. And I think that brings us back to the cost of charging networks, the cost of installation, the complexities that are being placed in it. And I mean, there was an incident this week. I received an email from someone to do with a charging station that was installed supposedly to be a charge master charging station, which is part of the Polar network, installed in a location, and for 3 or 4 weeks it sat there and did nothing, and it turns out that it wasn't working because it couldn't get a cell phone signal.
Oh yeah.
Someone had gone to the extent of installing this system without checking to see that it actually worked. And then there were, then they went, oh, this doesn't work. We're going to have to install a dumb system.
And maybe that's the answer. Maybe this is, because we've talked a year now about, how long has it been since the first charging stations went in? It's been over a year now, right? We've been doing this for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. Well, longer than that.
And, commenters have sort of speculated on how it's going to work out. Maybe we're starting to see the answer. The answer is, and the chips are falling this way. You have super cheap units on the one end where you just plug a connection in, and you have super expensive pay-as-you-go units on the other end of the scale. Maybe there is no middle market. Maybe there isn't enough funds yet.
I've talked to various people, and the noise on the grapevine is that this plug on the wall thing is going away very quickly. In a couple of months, possibly a year, the plug on the wall is going to be technically not possible. That's what I've heard from industry insiders.
And why do you think
People are
that?
trying to rush through legislation to say it has to be a wired connection, just like you have in the States. So state style wired connections that you plug in. That's what
sounds like somebody trying to solve a problem we don't actually have.
I'm just watching what's going on in the chat room here, and people are saying all sorts about the business models of Polar and how it works, and lots of questions as to how the business model works from Polar. I'm not going to go into that because I don't have. Again, we invited Polar on the show to talk about it, and they refused. I made it very clear to David that David Martell, the CEO of Polar, you come on the show, it will be a live show. People will be able to post their questions to you live. If you need, I will also work it up as a phone-in, so people can talk to you directly and you can get your side of things across and how you envisage the business model working. But at the end, he said, I'm not going to engage this hysteria. It sounds like a PR fail, really.
Yeah, it's a bit of a PR fail. I will agree with you on that, definitely.
It's a PR fail, and it's a really sad day because, you want
it to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a journalist with a background in electric vehicles, so I'm very keen for this to work. I'm very keen for people to have the charging network. And as various people have said in the chat room today, nobody is asking for a free network. No one's asking for it to be gratis. People are expecting and willing to pay for the electricity they use. But I think at the end of the day, when you end up paying the equivalent of a tank of petrol a month just to have access to the service, it doesn't make much sense, and people are going, look, we paid up front for this, we made the commitment, and when you talk about the charging stations, okay, yeah, you get a charging station at home, which is cheaper because you're renting it and you've got a service level agreement, so if it gets wrong, you've got some comeback. But most people I know that own an electric car don't even own one of these official charging units. They just charge from a mains circuit at home, and even in the States where it's 110 volts. How many people do you know, Michael, that charge from 110 volts? There must be a fair few.
There are some. I mean,
even Tesla owners do it, don't they?
Only fair weather Tesla owners. Yeah, I mean, if you drive your Tesla at the weekend and only at the weekend, you can survive on the on the wall wart, as I call it, because that's what it looks like. With a 2-day turnaround time between a flat battery and a full battery.
Yeah. And I've also talked to people who've got Teslas who only drive it, 20 miles to work and back every day.
Yeah, that's...
So then all you need is a 110 volt charge overnight, I guess.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't really make any difference.
It's touch and go at that point, actually, because there's a lot of there's hidden problems with the 110 charger that don't necessarily jump out. And that's that on a hot day, when the battery, you can bring it home and the battery's warm, it can spend an hour cooling the batteries down, and at such low power levels it can't actually cool the batteries and charge the batteries at the same time.
Look, I mean, this is all really this whole Polar network thing is a really nasty situation to be in, because it feels like a fight. On one end you've got one set of people, and on another you've got another, and then they're all trying to do the same thing. But nobody wants to back down. Nobody wants to say, "Okay, I'm willing to listen." And that's
well, the proposition is we're going to bring you a charging network, and we're going to charge for it. Unfortunately, they're charging too much for it, and they're not delivering a good enough charging network. So that's why the business will fail.
All right, so let's go on to another quick E. You can now pre-order Revenge of the Electric Car, which you have been able to do for a couple of weeks now, must be said, Michael.
Oh, okay.
Because I did an article on it a couple of weeks ago. You can now pre-order Revenge of the Electric Car. I just wanted to bring it up before we go into a bit of...
I have to say, I was doing a bit of a Christmas gift look around and going to publish a story, but really got around to it too late because it would have been up on the site and just annoyed people that we hadn't done it early enough. So we held off, but I did notice that, and it's a great one.
Yes,
really
that was one of my picks last week, because I did a story last week about gift ideas.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, I get the message. Old news on transport.
Yeah, get the idea, but it is too.
I'll catch up.
It is too late. It's too late. However, I do want to show you this, because I saw this last week as part of my story into gift ideas for hybrid drivers. I'm going to show you something now that I'm sure you will like. Here we go. Keep calm and drive on in your Chevy Volt. If you're English, you'll understand this and find it hilarious. This is a play on the Second World War, Keep Calm and Carry On, which has now made it onto the T-shirts of Chevy Volts. Keep calm and drive on, even if your Chevy Volt is doing strange things with the battery and that. Not that we'd say that the Chevy Volt does, because it doesn't.
Not that it ever would.
Not that it ever would. All right, so let's
go
go on.
I know, the Chevy Volt's not doing anything strange with its battery.
Well, not at the moment. It's under investigation. Might be getting a bit toasty. And by the way, I did pay attention.
Well, after an accident, let's be fair.
After an accident, let's be fair.
After you've wrapped it around a tree and you've turned upside down, then make sure you get out of the car within 3 weeks.
Yeah, you're quite right. Well, it's actually 2 weeks, but you're quite right.
Do not dawdle.
You're quite right. I mean, it wasn't anything sensationalist about this, but Chevy are
some people
still
made it out to be. I think that's
I mean the right-wing media did, and I mean I certainly included the keep calm and drive on as a very much a tongue-in-cheek thing, because I if I had a Chevy Volt, I'd have one of those. I think it'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Next story.
Slightly better news coming out of California this week, Mr. Michael Thwaite, isn't there?
Oh, there's loads of stuff going on. We're not going to talk about the Detroit Auto Show then.
No, we're going to talk about Tesla.
Tesla. Oh yeah.
Tesla.
So do you fancy an electric car with 100-mile range for $56,000, which seats 5 people?
Yes.
Great. It's the AMP Jeep Grand Cherokee conversion.
No.
Oh, wait a minute. Hang on a second. That's $56,000, and it goes
about the same price as
we can do a better job than that, can't we?
Okay, well, look.
Tesla Model S instead.
No, with Tesla Model S. We'll do Tesla Model S in a second. I was hinting for Tesla Model S, and you just went down a little teasy route. Let's talk about the AMP. Let's talk about the AMP. The AMP. This is going to be arriving at the Detroit North American International Auto Show next month. The funny thing about this is Jeep Grand Cherokee, right? Chrysler, essentially. Chrysler is one of the oldest, the Jeep Grand Cherokee is one of the oldest types of SUVs on the market today, the oldest names. And the Grand Cherokee doesn't have a very good reputation in terms of fuel economy, does it, Will? Do you know what it is offhand?
The fuel economy for the Grand Cherokee? No, I can't give you that.
It's about 23 miles to the gallon.
That sounds quite good, actually.
That's your V6.
That's got to be 23 English miles to the gallon.
No, that's US. 23 US.
US, okay. That's not too bad, actually, for a lump like that.
For its V6 version two-wheel drive, if you go with a V8, it drops like a stone. And that's a combined MPG, by the way. Interestingly, however, there will be a diesel one coming in 2013, which Chrysler has promised, and also a hybrid version, which Fiat stroke Chrysler has kind of said, look, we've got to make these because it's the only way we'll pass the emissions standards that the Obama administration has put in place for 2025. So the only way we're going to pass those is to make hybrids and diesels. We put our hands up and realise it. An all-electric one, it's not going to happen yet, but it is coming through AMP. Now, AMP are a conversion company. They have previously converted Chevy Equinoxes. They've also converted Mercedes MLs to electric, and there's now a load of converted Mercedes MLs running around Iceland. Right, Michael?
Converted MLs?
Yes.
Tapping away there.
Going around, he's looking up into the story now.
Yeah, no,
right.
I'm reading through the chat room. Actually, there's an enormous conversation.
Little bit of automotive history going on.
Yeah.
There for you, Mr. Wildron. When did Chevy get together with Mercedes?
You're testing me. This is unfair.
Yes.
It's got to be the 300E, right?
They got together in
300C.
98.
Well done, 98. Did you Google it?
I did.
I could just see your eyes moving. So yeah, they got together in 98. They broke up in 2007. And in that interim time, that 9-year period, Mercedes and Chrysler worked on joint cars. the ML, the Mercedes ML and the Chrysler Grand Cherokee or the Jeep Grand Cherokee share the same platform. And apparently the amp conversion is a bolt-for-bolt identical drop-in fit between the Mercedes and the Jeep. So it's nothing major. But the price, Michael, do you really think someone's going to spend $56,000 on a 5-seat lump of an SUV that's only going to do 100 miles? And it's a 47.5 kilowatt-hour battery pack, is it?
Well, it's going to result in a 100-mile car, and I'm not sure. And you're really going to have to want to drive a Grand Cherokee over something like a Model S to pick this, I think, because the Model S, certainly on paper anyway, and certainly from what I've seen of the beta car, I don't understand. I can't see who would actually buy this. I can't even think of one or two customers who would jump at this, and I think the timing is bad.
Okay, if you want an SUV, there are plenty of good SUVs out there that are hybrids, right, Will?
There are plenty out there, yeah. I think this is a real niche product, but maybe it'll suit someone who's willing to spend that kind of money on something a bit unique.
Well, I've never driven. This is the thing. I've never driven a conversion that feels sorted. When you
I think that's part of the problem, isn't it? You're going to want to put something that's genuine from a proper manufacturer, potentially.
And that's the big problem. I mean, I must say, I've driven one-off cars that have been built by hobbyists, conversions, that have felt very well done. They're engineers' cars. They've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars working on it. They've got it just right. They've tweaked it. They know exactly how to drive it. The batteries are set up perfectly, but we're talking about the Cedric Lynches of the world. People who spend most of their spare time working on their car, rather than a company that's trying to do it for a profit and therefore make money, and therefore it has to do it on a timescale, and therefore it can't keep tweaking. It has to get to a point where it goes, nope, this is the product we're going to offer. This is what happens. This is how it goes out the door. And I think in that situation, it's very difficult.
The only time I think these guys will be successful is if the Model S price does jump up, as many are predicting, and as Elon Musk has said might happen.
Well,
so looking at the figures then, so let's do a side-by-side comparison.
Yeah, why not?
That's a 100-mile car with a $56,000 price tag. For $57,400, in other words, $1,400 more, you get the 160-mile version of the Model S. Admittedly, that's your entry-level model. The next advantage, of course, is that you'll get $7,500 back, which you wouldn't have got, I don't think, on the AMP, unless somebody can correct me on that. But throw in another 10,000 and you get another bump on the mileage, another up to 230 miles. Another 10 takes you up to 300 miles, which is kind of cool. And another 10 gives you the performance version, which lops 1.2 seconds off the 0 to 60 time.
Okay.
So it's kind of, if you take into consideration the 7,500 back, which I know no one likes to do, but it makes the numbers easy. You basically wound up with sort of 50, 60, 70, 80,000 for the 160, 230, 300, and the performance model, which also has the 300-mile battery. And I think they've got the price absolutely spot on.
But before we get excited, I need to point out Tesla has done.
Too late.
Tesla has taken the $7,500 federal tax credit off the price for you. So it's not actually $49,900. It's not $59,900 or $69,900.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's no guarantee. There is no guarantee that the federal tax credit will continue.
Will remain.
And you should not, period. You should not buy a car based on the money that you are going to get from a government, based on the government scheme that may or may not continue. Anybody who lives in the UK, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here now. Anybody who lives in the UK will know that recently the Conservative government changed the rules regarding the solar feed-in tariff program. Okay, the solar feed-in tariff program was due to be modified, and the rates that were payable, guaranteed per kilowatt hour income from feed-in tariffs, were due to be changed next spring. The UK government jumped on board early and changed it from the beginning of December. So there were lots of businesses that were set up to take advantage of this feed-in tariff scheme that are now in agony because they no longer can afford to operate, basically, because they don't have the money coming back that they expected. And when you're buying a car like this, you need to make sure that you can afford the federal tax credit. Because
can I just say something about the Model S?
Go on.
I think the people who are buying it probably have the money to be able to cope with $7,500. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, it's a high-end car. It's a luxury car. The guys who are buying this probably are smart enough as well to realise that the federal tax credit possibly won't last, but they're probably enthused enough about the car to go ahead anyway.
That is very true.
That's very true. You could do PR for Polar.
But in the
PR for anyone, Mike.
in the interests of honesty, I think we need to say, look, this is before federal tax. This is after federal tax incentives. So before federal tax incentives, you're going to be paying, starting from 57,000 and going up. I mean, someone in the chat room has said that a fully loaded 300-mile performance signature is well over $100,000. And let's go on to that, because kudos to Tesla. Tesla have done exactly what a lot of boutique automakers do. This is not unusual. This is not, I mean, Mercedes-Benz do it, Aston Martin do it, Jaguar do it, all of the sports car manufacturers do it. They, instead of giving you a package with a price list and then going, and then you put this on top, and that's it. They go, okay, you'd like the signature performance, right? So that starts at $97,900, right? What do you think to that, Michael? That's pretty good, isn't it?
That's no, it's not quite that much, is it? It's a little bit less than that, isn't it?
97,900 for the signature performance.
Signature performance.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a little bit more? Because they bolt some extra stuff on. Okay.
Right, okay. And for that, you get 85 kilowatt hour battery, 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, high performance drive inverter, optional signature red paint, optional signature white leather, etc., etc. Then, if you want to add other bits to it, okay, so paint is standard. If you want to add a all-glass panoramic roof, which is something that Tesla made a big fuss about when we went to the factory.
Something Elon Musk made a big deal about. Said it was the largest panoramic roof on the market. And
Tesla did really pimp that roof, didn't they? Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. But if you want it, it's going to cost you $1,500. If you want extra wheels, like if you want the nice aerodynamic wheels, that's going to cost you extra. If you want the tech package, that's going to cost you extra in certain cars. You want the rear-facing seats, that's $1,500. If you want
the rear-facing seats is an interesting one. I really wonder how many people are going to go for that for $1,500. It's got 5 seats already. How many people want a luxury sedan like that that's got 7 seats?
I'll tell you what, quite a lot of people.
I think it'd be quite popular, actually.
Yeah. Do you really think so?
Well, it would be like
I do,
Volvos.
because I think it'll capture a lot of people who go out and buy 7-seater SUVs and then drive around them on their own for the next 3 years.
I think people will go for those seats just because they can, if they can afford it. Like you're saying, if they can afford it, they will spend that extra money to have the option, especially if they've got a big family. I mean, if I was buying one, I'd certainly go for the jump seats.
Really? Well, you've got lots of kids.
Yes, I have 15 children.
Yeah, but see, I wouldn't, but then I wouldn't go for the fancy roof either, because I don't like. I like my roofs to be made of metal.
No, I don't think we'd go for the panoramic. Well, I would go for the panoramic roof, but I would have a divorce case on my hands if I did. Let's put it like that. Do you think, though, that this is a really clear pricing policy? Because it is. And Tesla has always been very open about, we are going to give you a base model and then you add on whatever you want. And in addition, we're not going to tell you that you can't have A because you've got B. If you want leather seats and orange coloured body paint, you can just have leather seats and orange-coloured body paint. I mean, no one's going to tell you it's bad taste and it looks like it's from the 1970s.
Yeah,
but it's going to be possible.
I had to take a glass sunroof with my Mini just because it came with one of the packages and I didn't want it.
There you go.
Wouldn't take it off. Yeah,
there you go.
That's true. But have you seen the sub headline in this story?
No.
There's another headline, and I think this is an important one and kind of something that people seem to have glossed over. And I've been quietly worrying about this one. Look at the warranty that you get on the different models of car. The 40 kilowatt hour battery has a 100,000 mile warranty.
Right.
The slightly bigger battery has a 120,000 mile warranty. And the biggest battery, well, they're going to give you an unlimited warranty, which basically means further. But this has been something that's sort of concerned me. And when I look at the Tesla with its 250 mile range, and all nickel, lithium-ion batteries have a limited charge discharge cycle count. Every charge discharge degrades the storage capacity. Mm-hmm. Now, if I have 1,000 charge discharge in my Tesla, that is 250,000 miles. But if I have 1,000 charge discharges in my 160 mile range Tesla, it's only 160,000 miles, which is a significant difference, because when I'm doing my same daily commute of, call it, let's say I did 50 miles a day in my little batteried car, I'm actually doubling the load and wear on the batteries compared to my larger car.
It's a very valid point.
They've actually brought it out and highlighted it here, I think.
And I think it's going to put people off buying the cheaper models.
Might do.
What do you think, Will?
I think 6,500 orders have already been placed, and those guys are going to go for the ones that they want. We spoke to a guy who wanted the 160 mile one because that's all he needed, and I guess the price difference up front is going to be the deciding factor.
But I think the thing to remember, and I think the thing that's very easy to forget, is that Tesla is very much like a Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
You still today in England, and I think also in Southern California, or in fact Northern California, you see people driving Lotuses that you really wouldn't expect to be Lotus drivers. They maybe have quite regular mundane jobs. They don't earn a lot of money, but they're automotive enthusiasts. They really want that car. And so they save and they save and they save and they save, and then they buy. In the same way, I know people who've got Nissan Leafs who are on really stupidly low salaries. And yet they've saved for years and years and years for their first electric car because they're so into it. They've got that electric car, now they're going to buy it. When I was in Fremont, I met a couple who were one of the very first people to buy a Prius in Northern California, the original Prius. They have owned that Prius since, said that it was the last gas car they were going to buy, and they're going to buy a Tesla Model S. They can't, based on their monthly salary, there's no way they could afford that car, but they're buying it because they want to support this new dream, as they call it, this dream of Elon Musk. They're the fanatical fan base. They're the early adopters, the people who are desperate to support this company at all odds. And I think those are the ones that are going to suffer, because they're going to be the ones that aren't buying the 300-mile cars. They're the ones that are buying the base spec because they desperately want Tesla to succeed. And I think those are the ones that are going to suffer at the end of it. Do you think that is not going to be a problem, Will?
No, I can see that's the case, but I think they'll still be happy. And I mean, you only have to look at the sort of 15-year-old electric cars that are still kicking around using the old technology. I think the guys who buy the cheaper model are still going to be happy with their cars 10 years down the road. They'll have to anticipate the fact that they are going to lose more as a percentage, but I think they'll still like their car and be happy that they bought it.
All right, I think it's time for an ad break. I think we need to talk to Mr. Aaron Crocco. Take it away, Mr. Aaron Crocco. And When Darkness Ends.
When a devastating earthquake strikes Manhattan, Travis Hunter finds himself among the other survivors trying to make sense of a city in ruins. In the aftermath, word spreads among the displaced. New York City was only a small part of a global disaster. For the first time in human history, an earthquake shook the entire world. While trying to get back home, Travis is confronted by a being from another realm and tasked with a divine mission: help bring on the apocalypse or be killed. Faced with this directive from a messenger of God, Travis must assume a role dating back to the beginning of time and is forced to begin a journey that will destroy all of humanity. Book 1 of my debut series, As Darkness Ends, is the first in a 6-book novelette series and is available now. As Darkness Ends, Book 1 can be purchased from Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, Apple's iBooks, in print from CreateSpace, and in other formats through Smashwords. You can read the first chapter for free and learn more about As Darkness Ends at my website, www.aaroncrocco.com/darkness.
There you go, Mr. Aaron Crocco, and When Darkness Ends. He's working on the other book. Apparently, it's nearly ready. So, Will, can you name me all of the cars this year that have been delayed? Electric cars that have come to market that have been delayed, one way or t'other. That was a nervous laugh if ever I've heard one.
The Fisker Karma.
Fisker Karma, yep, that's one. Michael?
Active-E.
Active-E, BMW Active-E, okay. The Nissan Leaf has been delayed in not really delayed in many ways, but delayed rolling out cars to people, as many as wanted them in certain areas, let's put it like that. Chevy Volt had some issues with supply and demand. Not really delayed, but supply and demand issues. Coda. Do you want to pick another one, Will? Can you think of any others?
I'm trying to think. Was the Kangoo ZE delayed? Or they always said end of the year.
No, I don't think that was delayed. But there's one that has been delayed for next year, and that's the 2012 Smart Electric Drive. And, Michael?
Ah, yes.
And the Ford Focus EV.
Yes. Oh, Ford Focus. Yes, we forgot about Ford.
Yeah.
So, 2 cars definitely delayed until next year. Very interesting one on the Smart. Okay, let's give you the background to this. The Smart for 2 electric drive is the 3rd generation electric drive Smart to come out. The first generation was just horrible. Will, have you ever driven that?
Not the first generation, no, but I drove one in the UK. It's our first review, in fact, around sort of April time, I believe it was.
And how did you find it?
You know, for what it was, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I drove it into work, out of work. It was absolutely fine for my purposes, and I think it's quite cute. And for the people who like the petrol version of the Smart, who do sort of low mileage and stuff, I think it's a great little car. And in fact, I would say it was even better in a way to drive, because the gasoline version has a terrible transmission. I mean, it's really awful. It's like dropping an anchor out of the back of the car.
Do you mean when you want to change gear, you go, okay,
when it changes gear,
are you ready? I'm going to change gear now. And the car goes, oh, I'm sorry, I was sleeping. Gear lever, right. Gear, sequential gearbox. There you go. And then you get your gear.
And the electric drive is it gets rid of all that, and it was really great fun. I thought it was a cute little car. Obviously, it's not it's a small car, so over bumps it's horrendous.
I've driven the first. I've driven in the first, second generation. Sorry, and the first and second generation had great acceleration to 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, yeah, it doesn't go quick.
And then once you get beyond 50, it becomes antagonizingly slow. First and second generation can't even get to 70. And I took one on the freeway once against better judgment. It was not pleasant. Excuse me.
But it wasn't really designed for that, was it?
No, it wasn't. Although, you know,
just wanted to take your life into your own hands. That's what
yes, I mean, I asked Mercedes-Benz representatives, should I take this on the M1? And they said, yeah, you can.
Yeah. Honesty helps, I think.
Honesty really does help sometimes. Somewhere, and one day I will produce a sped up version of it. There is a 1.5 hour video clip of me on the M1 in this little tiny smart car, and most of it is me just staring like a bunny, scared little bunny in the rearview mirror, going, "Please don't squish me! Please don't squish me! Please don't squish me!" to all the trucks that are piling up behind me in the slow lane. So back to the story. 3rd generation smart ED electric drive, not erectile dysfunction, was due to hit the market next spring. It's now going to be next fall. The reason why, Michael, very interesting.
Yeah, is it something to do with just quality control issues with the batteries?
Daimler's been really strange about this, but yeah, it seems that it's quality control issues with the battery packs not getting the consistency that they want. I think it's consistency rather than safety. They just don't feel ready. The car's ready, the batteries are ready, so they're not going to get it out, which is a real shame because listen to this specification list. 2012 smart electric drive. Top speed, 75 miles an hour. Much better improvement. 80 to 85 miles of range. 17.6 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack, which in a car that small,
not too big, actually.
Is not bad
too
at
expensive.
all. 22,000 UK price tag. So what's that in dollars?
30, roughly.
Yep.
But I imagine if it's £22,000, it's not going to come over as the normal conversion. I don't think. I would imagine they'll pitch it somewhere around. No, I think it'll be mid-20s. Call it 25, 27, somewhere around that.
Let's say mid-20s, okay. Which, again, if you consider the federal tax incentives, which I said earlier on you shouldn't, but if you could, then that will drop the price further.
If they can hit that magic mark, 27,500, they can get it lower than that.
Then they can then that it's 20 grand.
Yeah, they will join the throng.
As long as Uncle Sam continues to allow that incentive. Cool.
And that's pretty good. I'd take one at that kind of money, actually.
Yeah. Well, this is the really clever bit. It's got an option of a 22 kilowatt charger, right?
Yeah, that's 80 amps J1772, right?
And that's faster than you've got in your Tesla.
Yeah, it is. It's a smidge quicker, yeah.
And that means you can charge your smart car from empty to full in under 1 hour. Will, doesn't that sound like the kind of car you want to drive?
That's smashing. Yeah.
I mean, that is stonkingly good.
When we drove the one with the Tesla units inside it, we knew Daimler was going to come out with its own stuff, and yeah, it's delayed. But if it's a good car, isn't it worth hanging on for?
Oh, well, I mean, I think people in London are going to go for it because I think it's going to be great in London. I really
people
do.
Upgrading from a G-Wiz are going to love it, I think.
I'm surprised that many people would still have G-Wizes they want to upgrade from, but maybe, yeah.
There's plenty of them still kicking around.
The number I've seen on eBay recently would suggest otherwise, but okay, so back to the batteries. Someone in the chat room has asked who makes the batteries. The batteries are made by Litech. They're a sub-supplier chosen to manufacture the battery cells in a joint venture between Daimler and Evionic. So I hope that answers your question, Doug, in the chat room, who was asking about who made the batteries. I think that charger, though, that 22 kilowatt charger, is the bomb. I mean, imagine that in a Nissan Leaf.
Well, that'll give
that
you.
Would change the game overnight.
Would it?
Yes, absolutely.
That's less than a DC fast charger. So your
I don't
DC
care.
fast.
If I can turn up at a public charging station, and the charger is in my car, I can use any of those.
Yeah,
22 kilowatts is a bit of a game changer. And I know I've said differently in the past, but my mind is starting to change on that front.
Well, the only problem is that these public chargers are all coming out at 30 amps, and this has disappointed me as well because I've heard of one company, Shaw Electrics, I think, or Shaw Electronics, I forget, that have delivered 80 amp charging capable J1772s. All of the ones I've seen that are going in so far are quite wimpy, sort of 30 amp ones. which means, you're talking about 6 kilowatts compared to 20 kilowatts, which is a huge difference, right?
It is, and I think that would be a major issue. But I think, ultimately 22 kilowatts would make a huge difference. And I think Daimler are talking about a 5-figure production run for these, which is small on the automotive scale of things. But it's still going to be large enough to get people interested, to get people buying, and to get people working. All right, so let's go on. Let's talk about Ford. Ford's kept very quiet about this Ford Focus coming. But production's happening, deliveries in January. We talked a little bit about it last week because obviously the announcements were last week. Do we think Ford's got a chance, Will?
Yeah, I think they have. Obviously, it's priced high, but I think it looks like a quite a special car, and there are definite sort of plus points to it. I think it's got a chance, and I think that people who don't want an Nissan Leaf,
of which there are plenty.
Yeah, the good thing is that what we're seeing now is more choice, and I think that's going to really, really make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think about the range, though? Where do you think the range is going to? Where's it going to fall?
The range, what are they saying? 100?
Yeah.
No, not yet. They're not actually they're being a bit cagey about it, aren't they? Because it's got is it slightly smaller battery?
23 kilowatt hour battery pack. 100 kilowatt motor. I can't believe I just said 100 kilowatt hour. And now people are going to get on at me for that. 100 kilowatt motor and 23.
I'll explain the difference to you, Nicky, if you want.
So, it might be a tiny bit more efficient, which would give it, a comparable range to the Leaf. But I'm expecting it to fall into the sort of 60 realistic range, and that worries me a little bit because I think it's going to wind up being quite a heavy car. And
they say it's the most efficient electric car out there, but by I think 1 mpge over the Nissan Leaf. So we'll see.
I don't buy how that car is going to perform better than a car that's got its batteries low down to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy it. Ford must have. If Ford have achieved that, I'm going to be really impressed because it's going to be one hell of a car. Mm-hmm. If it's got the electronic stability controls just set up right, it's got the suspension set up just right, and it really does drive as Ford says, it's going to be amazing and it's going to really take off. But I'm yet convinced about this platform. The idea that it can have batteries effectively in the back of the car that and stability is not going to be affected. I don't know. Batteries in a car really should be down low and in the center of the car, between the wheels. Mm-hmm. That's the best place for them.
Well, we'll see.
We will see. Okay, Karma on eBay this week.
Yeah.
You want to buy a Fisker Karma, Michael?
Yeah, well, there you go, charity on eBay. This is kind of an interesting story because it kind of started out looking a little bit on the shady side, but seems to have actually tidied its act up and turned itself into what could be quite a good, promising story.
So the guy started off. He put this car on eBay earlier this week on quite a quick auction. It's a 2012 Fisker Karma, and he said that he wanted to sell it quickly and it was going to be for charity. Okay. Currently stands, interestingly, at $124,000. Got 20 hours, 7 minutes and 39 seconds left. By the time the show goes out, it'll have all been finished. But he said he's going to be selling this for charity. He's bought 2. And one of them he's selling off to donate $5% of the final price to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research, which, as I am sure you would all agree, Parkinson's disease is terrible and we need to research it, do we not? So, but at the same point, it does read a bit bizarrely that this guy's just bought a brand new car and now he's auctioning it off. It says, I loved it so much, I have 2 and I'm selling 1. And he's selling this as an opportunity for people not to wait in line. Somebody said, who are you trying to kid? And my answer is as follows. Not trying to kid anyone. Thanks for the opportunity to clarify. 5% of whatever the selling price is, I will donate. 5% at 125,000. That is $6,250 from him to the charity. So
you're so cynical, Nikki. Someone tries to do a good thing, and you just think it's
I'm
all...
cynical of eBay.
Right.
Cynical
okay.
of anybody selling anything. Actually, when you read the story, you can sort of follow the story again on Green Car Reports. John Volker wrote up an article on this, and you sort of follow the line of it. But when it first came out, the guy who it seems has got no experience selling cars basically came across as a very dodgy 1970s car salesman, telling everybody what a wonderful deal they were going to have buying this car. And then, the articles have been written about it, and obviously it brought some attention, but he's now sort of backpedaled a bit and sort of filled in some of the blanks that people were sort of filling in by themselves with whatever came to mind.
Yes.
Yes. And now, I guess, if you take a look back, maybe it's as simple as this. He put the deposit down for 2 because he figured maybe I can make a buck by getting one of these cars and selling it. Now he's come to actually get the car, and he's found that A, he likes the one he's got, and B, the one he's selling, he's still planning to make $1 on it. He's thinking, hang on a second, I could do something a bit better about this. Maybe what if I did, shared some of the profit that I'm going to make from selling this thing quick with a good cause? Maybe that'll also help boost the price. A little bit altruistic, a little bit, businessman. It's okay.
And maybe there's a Ghost of Christmas Past in there somewhere, or Christmas Future.
Maybe.
If you want to auction, if you really do want to auction something for charity, I have to say this is how you do it. You go somewhere like, Chevy's auction for Job 2, which, if you don't know, is the second ever Chevy Volt off the production line. They had a special auction site, and it was all done up front. And I think if you're going to auction something for charity, maybe eBay isn't the place to do it. Or if you do, you actually contact the charity first and go, I want to auction this car off for charity in aid of you. And you do it through them. And you just make sure you make it kosher. I'm not saying this guy isn't kosher. I'm erring on the side of this is a guy who genuinely wants to help out, but maybe is a little naive. And just desperately wants to help, but maybe hasn't gone about it in the right way. And there are lots of people in the world like that.
Yeah, but it's okay. The next one he sells, he'll do a better job.
Excellent. All right. So I think it's time for an Audible book ad.
Aye.
Michael, what do you think?
Well, if you've never been to audiblepodcasts.com/transport evolved, now is the time to go. You can take part in a wonderful offer that we put together with our friends at audible.com. You get to join it for a free audiobook service, a trial of their 14-day service that they offer. You can choose from a range of over 85,000 audiobooks for your iPod or MP3 player, ranging from the classics through business and self-improvement to books for the kids or the kid in you. Comedy, nostalgia, and history, it's all there. This week, we are picking, over to you, Nikki.
Well, actually, it's going to be over to Will.
Will. My apologies.
Mr. John.
Well, which would you like me to choose out of the 2 that I've got currently?
Why don't you do Mr. Fry?
Yes, okay, fine. Stephen Fry's biography, it's his second biography, and charts his sort of later years. His first biography was all about, growing up and school, but the Fry Chronicles, unabridged, you can find on Audible, and it's a cracking listen, I have to say.
Cool. Excellent. And it's really worth it. Stephen Fry is great fun, and he's very witty, very British.
I think I'm going to have to get that one, actually.
It's going to have to be. You know what? I'm going to do this now. I'm going to do this now, actually. So I'm going to show you, look, how easy it is to go onto Audible, because I actually have an Audible subscription. I can get my computer to behave itself. I'm going to go on now. All right, so you go onto Audible. Here we go. And you look for, Stephen Fry. And it's Chronicles. You search for that. Here it comes up. And Stephen Fry Chronicles, an autobiography. You add it to your cart, like so. And then you go to your cart, and then you check it out. It's that simple.
I could just listen to Stephen Fry all day. He's got such a fantastic voice.
Yeah.
He's very smart, very witty. Love it.
And you look there. Mine says it's free. It's no charge, because I've got an Audible membership, and off it goes. And then it's downloading in the background, and off we go. Simples as a certain advert in the UK may or may not say.
That's completely lost on everyone else.
Other insurance brokers are available. Well, no, all I need to do is tell Americans watching that our equivalent of I've forgotten the name of it now. Oh, the Geico adverts.
The gecko.
The Geico gecko is that strange meerkat called Alexander. Google
He's
him.
excellent.
Google him. He is
Google.
funnies. Simples. This show has just gone downhill so much. Drag Racing
That's
World.
what happens when you invite me on.
I know. Drag Racing World recognises electric vehicles.
Woohoo! This is
Now,
good news.
This is not necessarily to say that we have not had electric drag racing vehicles before, because as you all know, we have had electric drag racing vehicles for a very long time. Let's just name some. We have
Nedra, for example.
it's the National Electric Drag Racing Association. And we've got people in the UK who are members of Nedra as well, which always makes me laugh because it's American, but they actually have members all around the world. You've got cars like White Zombie, Blue Meanie, a Black Current 3. You've got Current Eliminator. You've got so many that I can't think of, But now, the world of electric drag racing has just been officially opened and welcomed into the International Hot Rod Association with the incorporation of electric vehicles into their rulebook. This is very exciting because it means now that electric cars can compete against regular drag cars. Things just got a whole lot more interesting.
And a whole lot more people are now aware that there are electric drag cars because, regular attendees of normal, gasoline-fueled drag events might start to see some electric cars. And
Well, lest we not forget, let's look at Blackcurrant. I mean, Blackcurrant is just a stonkingly good car.
my favourite's Predator, actually.
You want to watch Predator?
Predator, yeah, the bike. Absolutely fantastic.
I can hear that. Why can I hear that? Brett, did you just play that, Michael?
I may have just accidentally clicked play.
You may have accidentally clicked play. That is not cool. Predator bike EV. For just that second, I just stopped for a second to see whether I'd got it right or wrong, or elephants or dogs. Here we go. This is Predator. That's not Predator. That's the wrong one, isn't it? That doesn't look right. No, that's the wrong one. Forget that. That's not Predator. Shut up. That's not Predator. Predator's electric.
Predator's electric. That doesn't
Find me
sound
the
good.
link. Send me the link, and then
I'll
play
send
it.
you the link.
Yeah, it's quite loud for an electric.
That was quite loud for an electric. You see, this is what happens when you Google something on the fly. It also looks really awesome as well. So wait for the link to come in from.
Check out that link. Scroll down. Predator bike breaks new Nedra record.
See, I should have just gone to the Nedra website. Mr. Chip Gribben will be getting on my case for that. I should have done that. So, will you be racing, Michael?
Me, I'd love to do some EV drag racing. Although in a street car now, I was looking at the Nedra site and looking at some of the conversions, based on to some regular, US-based cars and a Porsche. What was it? Porsche 944.
Keep talking.
But there you go. Just the way he just switches it on and the back end just lights up. I mean, how amazing is that?
It is pretty awesome.
You know,
It's pretty awesome.
that's what I like about electrics, the fact that they deliver all this power from just what seems like nowhere. The guy's just like watching the lights and then that's it. He just hits it and it's on its way.
It's brilliant, isn't it? The way it just takes off like that, and it's just
Fantastic.
push.
There you go.
Although being a biker, I don't think I would ever let myself be that close to
all that power.
To all that
But
power.
I don't think I could rock up to one of these events and bring anything to it though. And my Tesla is so slow compared to where these cars are going now. I mean, it'd just be a little bit embarrassing, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I could.
They can't drive as far as you, though, Mike.
Well, it's funny actually. One of the recent events, White Zombie, which normally was one of the really early cars, actually drove there instead of being trailered there, and so he's got so much battery power now that he's actually got a fair bit of range. Which is one of those.
It's literally puts new meaning into the word run
Run
what you brung. Goodness gracious, what have I done with my mouth today? Goodness gracious.
But at least when I leave, though, I can put the air conditioning on and put the radio on and listen to something on the way home.
I have to say, I'd rather have your car.
Maybe I need to talk to some of these people with these drag cars and do a swap for a bit.
All right,
Some of
so
these look fun.
next up, let's go back to charging to finish with. We've got a couple of stories this week. US Nissan dealers appearing on charging maps, but not offering public charging.
Yeah.
Michael, you take this one.
Yeah, I've been helping out with Open Charge Map, just verifying some of the locations in my area, just to make sure that the maps are pointing to the right kind of data. And there's data coming through identifying the locations of Nissan dealers as an example. And this is a starter for 10 other dealerships. The same is going to be true of the Ford dealerships. But as I started to call around, I got mixed responses. Some people said, "What's an electric car?" "Oh, wait a minute, I've heard one of those in one of our information bulletins. We're getting something called a Leaf." Others said, "Yeah, we have a Leaf, come down, check it out, but we don't have any charging facilities." And many of them said, "Yeah, we've been through a training exercise to learn how to use these new chargers, but no, they're not public." And so I said, "Why? Why aren't they public? Why would they be public? Why would I, just put that charger out there that I've paid all that good money for and just have people leeching electricity off me?" Yeah, right.
Well, this
exactly.
goes back to what we were talking about at the top of the show, doesn't it? Don't you think? Will?
Sorry, what was the question? I mean, I was listening. I think that if you're asking whether it's a bad idea not to let the public charge at this stage in the game, then I think yes, it is. They ought to be providing charging facilities at the dealerships for sure. We've just seen Renault in the UK announce that they've launched their 21 dealerships that will be for their ZE range.
The ZE, yeah.
Yeah, so they've launched 21 dealerships across the UK. Each of those has 3 charging points, one in the workshop, just for the workshop, one for the demonstrator vehicle, they're all getting a Kangoo ZE demonstrator, and one for the public car park. And that's the way to go about it, surely.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting with Renault. I mean, let's just deviate for a second, because Renault, as you say, they started making deliveries of the Kangoo ZE this week. Actually, I was with they started last week. I think it was the 9th. I was with a Renault representative on the 9th, and she was on the phone talking to someone about the very first customer delivery of the ZE vans, which is the vans that I drove in Portugal and loved, as opposed to the Fluence, which is just boring and uninspiring. And interestingly, when I brought it up with the Renault representative, "This car is boring and uninspiring," she went, "Well, yes, it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be a boring, reliable car." Off on a sidetrack. I mean, Renault's Kangoo ZE has now come out, the Fluence ZE has come out, but those vehicles do not have rapid charging capabilities. Excuse me. Which means if you turn up at a dealer and you're empty, you are going to be there all day. There is no way around that. Whereas with Nissan have these rapid chargers that you turn up and juice up at and off you go. Now, I've seen and encountered, and I know some of the people in the chat room have as well, the rapid chargers for these for Nissan Leafs are treated very differently by different garages. Some of them make sure that there is never a car parked in that space, never a car belonging to the company, to the garage, like the demonstrator isn't parked there. You turn up and it's empty. unless there's another member of the public charging. You pull in, you charge. Others, it is a nightmare to get them to move the car because they've parked regular cars in there, and then they get grumpy. If you go in and ask at the service desk, they get grumpy with you because say, "Can I just get to the charger, please?" You know, and you're really nice and kind, and half an hour, sometimes 45 minutes later, someone comes out flustered with a key to move the car, and you're an inconvenience. Now, I've experienced that in Southampton. In Southampton, the dealer in Southampton treated me like an inconvenience. I was in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, and on the west side of Birmingham, there's a dealer on the west side of Birmingham. Best experience I've ever had there. One of their charge posts wasn't working, and I went back in and went, this isn't working. They went, don't worry, you can plug in the one in our garage. When we sighted it, we made sure it would reach outside just in case anything went wrong, so that members of the public could use it if they needed to.
It's like the new world versus the old world here.
Yeah. So I think dealers do need to have access, and in the UK, that is part of the agreement to be a dealer for the Leaf, to be a dealer of the Renault Fluence. It's part of the agreement. But in the States, it's not, is it, Michael?
Well, they have to have a J1772 installed so that they can charge the cars, but there's no obligation, as I understand from the dealers I spoke to have a DC fast charger. In fact, most of them didn't know what that was. And they only had, all they had was questions about, I got, some of the dealers, you could hint that there was a turnaround, because here's how I see it. In the US, the car dealers are, and I'm sure it's much the same in the UK now, they are, I can't think of the exact word to describe this without offending every car dealer in the US, but maybe I'm not. They're just, stack them, pile them high, sell them low. I mean, they're similar to a Costco. If they could sell you 10 cars in a bubble wrap, they would. It's all about volume.
Hang on.
Right?
Hang on.
So,
got one? No.
So they will, on the weekend, on Saturdays in New Jersey, when they're allowed to sell cars, they can't sell them on Sundays. They will put out bunting to attract people's attention, and they'll have barbecues, and they'll have clowns doing things for the kids and stuff like that. Anything at all to bring you into the dealership. So when I said to one of the dealers, what if you were to make a charging point, available, and maybe some guy with an iMove turns up or gives you a call and says, "Hey, I hear you're on the map. I hear you have a charger. Could I borrow it? I made a mistake and I've only got 5 miles of electricity to get 10 miles home." There's a brilliant opportunity for the dealer there to cross-sell them on a Leaf or even any other kind of Nissan. It really doesn't matter. For such a tiny, tiny investment cost compared to what they probably spend on advertising.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit baffled. And I think it's the difference between the ones who get it and the ones who don't.
Well, I've been in dealers where they've spent millions, literally, on expanding a dealer to welcome a new electric car in, and others where it's sitting in the corner gathering dust. Will, is that your experience as well?
Yeah. Obviously, some of them are going to do it well, some of them are going to do it not so well. But I think eventually they'll all get their act together, because they have to. I mean, if you look at what Renault are doing, particularly, they're slashing their internal combustion engine cars next year, bringing in all of their new 4 electric cars, which is an exciting development. I mean, it shows that they're committed to it. It's a shame, and just reading some of the comments here, it's a shame that perhaps they haven't got it quite right in the dealerships, and I think that's something that Renault will think about.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that the Zoe blows everyone away because it's due. I hope that is the game changer. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it is. Let's put it like that. We've got a couple of final stories. Very good new scheme as kind of been started called Charge Bay Alert, which is designed to let you know if somebody else is charging where you want to be. Very clever. So you go to a charging station and say, "I'm here, I'm occupying this place," so that other people don't go desperate to charge to find that either somebody's there or it's broken. Very clever. Chargebayalert.co.uk. Finally, the Michael has just pinged me. I've got a story. Michael, go on.
Story. I must just tell everyone that the Open Vehicles Initiative passed a milestone this week with the publication of their iPhone app. So check it out. It's in the App Store now, and you can play around with a demonstrator that allows you to see what the final product looks like. But basically, it's a piece of hardware that you can install in your electric car, in our case, obviously a Tesla Roadster, that allows us to sort of have some of the features that you guys with your Nissan Leafs get to play with.
Yay!
Very cool.
Yeah, because that is something that I would not live without, is this idea of being able to check on my battery. And I know several Tesla owners who go outside. It's quite nasty.
Yeah.
It's quite bizarre. You go with them somewhere and they're sitting there and you're having a nice meal. And they go, I'm sorry, I've just got to go somewhere.
Yes. Well, more on that story in the new year, first week of January.
Are you going to be
updates?
Are you going to be testing some?
I will definitely be testing it, and beyond testing it.
You're buying it?
More to learn in the new year. I'll leave it at that.
Yay! Let's see what we go with that. All right, and finally, very interestingly, Toyota. There's a Freudian slip if ever there was one. Toyota has upped the price of the 2012 Prius. Interestingly, you can now only buy a Prius starting at $24,000, which means that hybrids are not that much cheaper, specifically the Prius hybrid, not that much cheaper than the Mitsubishi i now, is it, Michael?
No, that puts it
Just below. Just below.
Yeah, pretty close, right? So if you're in the market and you can live with a car with a 60-mile range, which, let's face it, many of us can. You've got an opportunity now to justify getting that electric car.
Well, let's put it like this. Okay, so the base model price, because interestingly in the States, the Prius is sold as kind of a 5-model setup. So you have the Prius 1, the Prius 2, the Prius 3, the Prius 4, and the Prius 5. And then you have various bolt-ons that effectively mean that then gives you 7 different trim levels. Is that right, Michael?
I think so, yeah. It's a little bit confusing. There's different
It's very
battery
confusing
sizes.
I mean, we were talking about the openness of Tesla and the price structuring. This is completely confusing. Okay, but starting with, interestingly also, by the way, it's got new tail lights, which I quite like. They're kind of sexy. Yeah. New tail lights, kind of more evocative. It's slightly been given a slight facelift, basically. More evocative of the Prius V, as it is in the States, or the Prius Plus if you are in the UK. The Prius 1 is $23,015, but it's only available to fleets. So if you're a private buyer, the only people who can buy will be the Prius 2. That's the cheapest, and it will start at $24,000. Now, this is interesting. Prius 2 gets touch screen and Bluetooth and USB and iPod connectivity. Doesn't get the backup camera. And it's a 4.3% increase for the Prius 3, which goes up to $25,565 for 2012. Now, interestingly, the top of the range, Prius 5, is $29,805, which is more expensive than the base level Mitsubishi i. So, it's getting there. Not there yet, and I should say that Mitsubishi i price is before federal tax incentives. So you take off that $7,500 at the end of the year, which, as I said earlier, you have to work into your purchase. You have to go. Because I've got several people recently contacted me going, I went to the dealer to find out how much a car was going to be, and Nissan said that my car was going to cost me X, Y, Z. And then when I got there, I realised that my car is going to cost me $7,500 more. I went, you have to pay up front. You can only claim the money back at the end of the year if you are in the States. Worse, if you don't make $7,500 in taxable, if you don't have $7,500 of tax in a year, you don't claim it back at the end of that year.
No, it's okay, actually. No, it's okay. It's actually an outright payment. So if you didn't make any money, they'd still send you a check for $7,500.
You still get it. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
So I thought you had to be off your income. Sorry.
It's an incentive for actually buying the car. They assume that you have actually bought the car and not just a Hummer, as some people submitted on their 2010 returns.
Oh, wow. C'est la vie. C'est la vie. Anyway, so there you go. quite nice with the whole Prius prices, but even nicer than the fact that the Mitsubishi i is getting there. That really is it for today's show. We ran over by about 20 minutes. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much for joining me today, Mr. Wildron. Where can people find out about you?
It's an absolute pleasure. Thechargingpoint.com.
Thechargingpoint.com. Anything else?
Where can they find out? No, I'm not going to tell you all the other websites I appear on.
Ooh, there you go. Everyone, quick, go and Google Wildron.
Just go to thechargingpoint.com. That's got the most interesting stuff about it.
Mr. Michael Thwaite is at Michael Thwaite. Sorry, about.me/Michael Thwaite. I always get that wrong, don't I? I am about.me/A Minor Journey, and I surprisingly also get that wrong from time to time. You can follow Michael on Twitter at Michael Thwaite. You can follow me at A Minor Journey on Twitter. You can also find me at Green Car Reports, where I do the thrice daily, sometimes quadruple or even as much as sextuple writings per day on the green scene. But as of tomorrow, I'm going to have 4 days off, and I'm looking very much forward to it because it is the holiday season. 'Tis the season to be holly. Have a wonderful time if you are celebrating the festival of Festivus, if you are celebrating Christmas, or if you are celebrating anything else that happens to fall around the same time. If you were celebrating Yule yesterday, I hope you had a good time there too. We will be back next week, will we not, Michael, with a strange...
Yes, indeed.
Best of, stroke prediction, stroke something else. The chances are it will be recorded at a slightly different time, so be aware for that. And until then, you can find us on iTunes, blip.tv, and loads of other places too. Thanks for putting up with the new studio and the new studio whatnots. Those of you who are watching live in the stream, stick around because I'll do you a live show round the studio after the show is done. Until then, though, drive green and don't forget to plug in. See you soon, folks. Take care. Bye.